Good evening. I'd like to call the regular City Commission meeting of Tuesday, April 24th, 2018 to order. And start by asking all of you to join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item of business is approval of the agenda, and actually I have a couple of changes to that before we get a motion. I'd like to add a couple of resolutions after public participation, and then delete item number 2, the off-street parking waiver. The homeowner has asked for that to be deleted.
Yeah, the smart millage.
And I need to add in its place a discussion of the smart millage.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the agenda with the additions of resolutions after public participation and the removal of item 2 with the replacement of smart millage discussion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of April 10th. Do we have a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Any questions or changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications. We had one communication.
Yeah, and I'd like to address this. This is a memo from the Recreation Department. The orange fencing around Scotia Park will be coming down soon so that residents can use it. However, we want another year for the grass to be established, so we're not going to be holding the 4th of July activities or the concerts in the park in Scotia Park this year, so that the landscaping can become established to the point where large crowds won't trample down on the new soil and grading that we just spent a lot of money putting in place. So it will be accessible to the public. There just aren't going to be any large-scale events held there this year. We'll be back on track in 2019, and the activities that are normally held there will be moved to the Recreation Center in Burton Field, depending on what that activity is.
Okay. We have our county commissioner with us this evening.
First of all, I have a proclamation honoring Tony Lehman,
Oh, for goodness.
but I'm not going to read it, but I did want to do this, and it was suggested that I do it here versus your open house last Friday. So, I want to thank you for all your years of community service in Huntington Woods, and I'm going to spare everybody reading all the whereas.
Please don't. I'm the one who's always verbose, so thank you so much.
Thank you, and this is for you to remember us.
Wow, how do you like that, huh?
Fancy. So you do have an agenda item that I actually asked for on SMART. So let me explain. We do have an Oakland County Public Transportation Authority that met to recommend that we put a 1 mil SMART millage before the people. We last did this in 2014, and the existing millage is expiring at the end of the 2017. And so the process is the Board of Commissioners have to approve this recommendation and put the ballot language before the voters. So this issue went to our General Government Committee on Monday, and technically it was a 1 mil that was voted on, but there's been a Headley override. So the Headley override rollbacks, thank you. This is I don't profess to be the finance expert, so thank you. So we had a rollback. So technically, the millage that we will pay is 0.986 on that 1 mil that we approved. But they're recommending a full mill approval, which is actually renewal plus a little bit. So What happened in General Government Committee is that most of my colleagues on the committee would not approve a tax increase. It's just a tiny amount. So they approved the .98, the Headley rollback amount. But they were amenable to reconsidering and going to the 1 mil, providing they hear from the opt-in communities, of which Huntington Woods is one of them. So I've reached out to all of my communities, asking them for letters of support. And I've already received 2 letters of support from some of my district. As I'm told, Amy had some really wonderful questions today. The difference in that little bit between 1 and .9 is a total of $250,000 of additional revenue for smart bus system. Amy asked the question, what are they going to spend that on? And this last 3 years, the highest priority was new equipment, new buses, bringing things up to date, and they've achieved that. And the highest priority right now is really to increase the quality of the improved fast buses, the experience, so that more people will use these improved services. So looking at doing better bus depots, transit places where having places where doing electrical wiring, so if I'm waiting for a bus, I can plug in my phone, things like that that will make the experience more positive. I actually rode the smart bus, the fast bus, last Friday. I went to the 8 Mile Boulevard Association meeting at Cobo Hall, and it was wonderful. I was on my Wi-Fi. I love mass transit, and I'm doing my correspondence. I watched on my way back. It was really lovely. This woman in a wheelchair got on in front of me, and I watched the bus driver hook her up, this really easy ramp, and then she was hooked up so her wheelchair wouldn't go wheeling, and then she was unhooked when she stopped. It was really a wonderful service, clean, well used. So this is part of the improvement for fast buses, of which we're right on one of the major lines. So I hope that you will decide to endorse this letter of support, and then it will come to the full county commission, and hopefully I can help swing 5 more votes so we can have a majority. The irony is that most of the people that voted against it represented opt-out communities. So I hope that you'll do what? That they won't be impacted, right. So I can't stay till you address that. Do you have any questions for me on this? It's just a letter of support. So just quickly, our DNA lab is finally operational. And again, this is a major thing for the county because we were using the state DNA lab, which was months behind. So now we have our own county resource, and this will expedite all sorts of court proceedings throughout the county. It took a long time to get the federal approval and certification, but we're finally live. So I'm very excited about that. Another big item coming before me is the 911 surcharge. Every year we have to vote on this. What happens is there's a charge supposed to be on both cell and landlines. We can never get an accurate accounting from the state about cell phones, but we're trying. We are in the process of moving from old copper wire, phone system into this EZNet and going into this whole new system, and that's part of why we are increasing money for several years so that we can fund that, fund equipment, replacement equipment. We have to pay for it, and maybe the state will fund, will pay for some of it, but we don't really know. So presently, this year, we were paying 32 cents a line on our phones for public safety. They are asking me to approve a 4-cent charge going up to 36 cents, and we can leverage 42 cents without a vote of the people. So we're still under that. And so I am going to vote in favor. I've already heard from one police chief in my district this evening, and they come out and in force supporting. Public safety is a major thing that we all do as for government. So the Oakland County Parks millage is not going before us in August. That's been delayed till maybe November. It's actually 2 years early, and it got delayed because the South Oakland County Commissioner said, we don't necessarily support this parks millage. I'm for parks money, but 38% of the parks revenue comes from our quadrant. And they keep talking about South Oakland Park Strategy, Urban Park Strategy. Show me the money. Show me what you're really doing rather than talking about it. I've been there 16 years. So I will keep you posted. I also wanted to just remind you, a couple weeks ago I participated in a workshop. I was on the panel, Opioid Drugs in the Workplace, in conjunction with the Greater Detroit Area Health Council and our own Tri-Community Coalition. We oversold the event. Opioid drugs is a public health crisis. I do want to refer people to our county website. There are a tremendous amount of resources there, mapping of where you can get alternative pain places, showing us we had over 300 deaths, overdoses in Oakland County in 2017. And we are using Narcan to prevent.
How many did you say?
Over 300 deaths in Oakland County in 2017. And I can't tell you how many times I know people are using Narcan. They used to at some of my cities award the police officers for use that can't keep up. Sheriff's Department, they also conducted a training of Narcan here in our library after. So I just want to encourage people, the best thing that we can do is learn about the issue so that we aren't misusing, some of the prescriptions or getting fentanyl. So that's it tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions of County Commissioner Zach?
Is our county executive still standing in opposition to the transit?
Yes, I think from my perspective, they're conducting hearings right now, the RTA, so that people can learn about the plan. But I spoke with Deputy County Exec Jerry Poisson last week, who's been our representative, and I don't see Oakland County changing its vote to put the plan before the people. And I don't think that realistically there's time to rework a plan where Oakland County is included, the numbers.
In terms of percentage of population within the county, the percentage of population in the affected, or I don't know what the right word would be, benefited routes where you would where it would benefit the community economically in every which way. What do you have offhand? What the percentage of vote? What percentage of population? Then it's naturally it's going to be percentage of vote, but percentage of population is the opt-outs versus the non.
Well, clearly we almost passed the millage in 2016 in Oakland County. And the footprint of the density, it's obviously more south and
Woodward corridor.
yeah, but if you look at where the votes were, Novi almost passed it, and they're an opt-out community. Rochester Hills had a lot of votes, and they're an opt-out community. So, there's, which is interesting. So, but I don't think we're gonna, the RTA legislation says that we have to have a supermajority of votes from the RTA authority to put the vote before the people, and you have to have at least one vote from every county. And I went to the 8 Mile Boulevard Association meeting on Friday. I don't see Macomb County changing their mind, and I don't see Oakland County.
I think the voters, even though they can say that the Amazon rejection wasn't directly tied to that. I think that did, in the minds of many people, at least provide a graphic example of what an adequate transit system might actually allow. So, okay. Thank you.
Last week in Cranes, there were a list of all these large CEOs in favor of transit. So there's a, there's a large vocal, but I don't see it happening with Oakland County included in this vote, whatever vote goes forward. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank Commissioner Zach for her efforts with the Parks millage and making sure that we get our fair share and standing up for those of us in the South End who know all too well where the money comes from and where the parks and programming go. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that the City of Huntington Woods request of the county a full 1 mil.
Commissioner Jenks, that's actually on agenda item number 2, so before we.
Well, I thought as
let's
long
wait till we
as
get to that.
the commissioner is here, maybe we could switch that.
Can we do that before we get to items of business?
If it's the will of the commission, yes, you could.
We have it as item 2. We'll get to it when it comes. It'll be all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public participation. Now is an opportunity for anyone from the public to address the commission for an item that is not on the agenda. Seeing none, public participation is closed. And we'll move on to resolution. I have a resolution that was actually presented to Mr. Lehman last Friday by our state representative, Robert Wittenberg. And I just wanted to officially present it at the city commission meeting this evening. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing on this one because Tony doesn't want me to. But I will read the last line, which is, in special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated to honor and thank Richard Tony Lehman for his work as finance director. May health and happiness be his in the future. It's signed by Robert Wittenberg, state representative, Vincent Gregory, state senator, Brian Calley, lieutenant governor, and Rick Snyder, the governor of the state of Michigan.
Wow, that's exciting. I should be so fortunate to see something like that. Keep it away from Donna, that's all I got to say.
You guys are largest house now.
You want to put that on there, and if I could ask Mayor Gillum to step up and help me with this next one.
I may have to support him time he gets through reading it all. You know, it's a Tony proclamation.
How many whereases and therefores?
Well,
are
we'll
in
see
there?
here, because I'm not going to let you off the hook on this one. We're going to read this proclamation.
Oh.
And this was a little difficult to do, because although I've taken a stab at writing a couple of proclamations over the last year, when I do, I always send them to Tony to proofread and to make correct. But
Embellish.
in this particular case, I had to somehow put my mind into Tony's head and try and write a proclamation that Tony would be proud of, because this proclamation of the city of Huntington Woods is recognizing Richard Tony Lehman. Whereas Tony Lehman is retiring effective May 1st, 2018, ending a stellar career in public service that began in 1980 as deputy treasurer in Wixom, Michigan, moving to Madison Heights, Michigan, and then as finance director in Lake Orion, Michigan. In 1988, he came home to Huntington Woods as finance director. He served for 8 city managers in his career, including Mark Wallenweber, Alex Alley, and Amy Sullivan here in Huntington Woods. His retirement is being driven by the desire to spend more time with his lovely wife, Donna, who he married in 1976, his children, Heather and Eric, and their spouses, Jack and Julia, as well as his grandchildren, Jackson, Avery, Evelyn, and Eli. And whereas Tony is a lifelong resident of Huntington Woods, Born in 1953 to Arthur and Zania Lehman, a product of the Berkeley school system, who went on to earn a bachelor's degree in public administration from Ferris State College and a master's in administration from Central Michigan University. And whereas, during his 30 years as finance director in Huntington Woods, Tony has represented the city on many district, county, and state boards, as well as serving on numerous professional groups and committees, including treasurer of the Intergovernmental Cable Communications Authority and the Southeast Michigan Regional Energy Office. His skill in preparing budgets, handling bond issues, and investing money has gained the city of Huntington Woods 15 straight years of national awards for financial excellence from the GFOA, and helped achieve a AA+ bond rating, which is unprecedented for a community of our size. And whereas
Sounds pretty good.
Tony's unending energy and desire to improve our community led him to join many civic organizations and to serve as president of the Optimist Club, the Bear Boosters, and the Huntington Woods Men's Club. For many years, he chaired and was the voice of the Tin Can Auction, and as an active member of the Huntington Woods Men's Club, did everything from selling raffle tickets, door-to-door sales of apple cider, hosting Cider Central, numerous stints as gift chairman and chairman of the auction, not to mention all his years of running the checkout, registration, and credit card processing. He has consistently been a top-selling member of advertising and gift soliciting for the auction. He is one of very few members who have earned both the President's and the Chairman's Award, and there's no doubt his involvement in the Men's Club has been a catalyst in the club growing its annual giving from $10,000 a year to the level where it's at today of $150,000. Whereas, amongst the other innumerable duties that Tony has undertaken as part of his job description, he has prepared many of these proclamations over the years. If he was tasked with writing this one, there would be many, many, many more whereases. And it would continue on for a couple more pages. But to keep it short, Tony has done it all for our city, from repairing computers and other office equipment, cleaning up after floods, helping any resident in any way he could, with a special place in his heart for seniors, who he has been known to make small home repairs and help with tax return preparation. Managing the tool trailer during the construction of Burton Community Park, IT manager for every department in the city, cable television coordinator, water fund manager, and on and on and on. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the city of Huntington Woods hereby recognizes Richard Tony Lehman for his dedicated and unselfish service over the past 30 years to ensure Huntington Woods would be a remarkable and highly desirable community. For those of us that have worked with him, it has been an honor to see him work his magic with numbers and an inspiration to witness all his volunteer efforts. For those of us that can list Tony Lehman amongst our friends, it is one of the privileges of our lifetime. Furthermore, on behalf of a grateful community, we wish Tony a long and healthy retirement. May you create many beautiful memories with Donna, your children and grandchildren, and all your family and friends. May your travels take you to all corners of the world and always bring you safely back home to Huntington Woods. Signed this 24th day of April 2018 by the two mayors that have the privilege of serving this community under you as a finance director, Ronald F. Gillum and Robert F. Paul.
Well, all I can say, I'll say it briefly, is that it's been an honor to serve all of you. It's one of the things every day when I wake up, I consider the capital P in public. Think about it all the time. And so I want to thank you all for allowing me to make you successful, and that's exactly it. It's you, the Huntington Woods Board, that really, takes the heat. It's my goal to see to it that you take none of it. And I've spent my lifetime here trying to do that. When I look out my window and I look at those homes there on those streets, I think of how fortunate all of us are every day in every way that we are residents of Huntington Woods. For all the tough times we had, all the difficulties, all the things that didn't go right, it's really amazing how with the effort on behalf of you city commissioners and city manager and these wonderful mayors that we have, and department heads who work tirelessly every day, it makes my job incredibly, incredibly easy. When I think of how difficult the decision it was to do this, it was very difficult. I'll say simply that getting married and having kids didn't hold a candle to determining to call Bob Paul on that day and talk to Amy Sullivan. A very complicated point in my life. And I'll leave you with this, and the reason that is, and the reason we work so hard for this, is because it's in the note I think I sent to Jules. If you take care of those investments you own and have, they will pay big dividends. And this city is that. It's an investment in Oakland County, it's an investment in the state. You folks know who have come from this dais here and so forth and spent time on boards and commissions all over the state. Michigan Municipal League presidents, SEMCOG presidents, you name it. And so when I go out there and I ask, you don't have to say a single thing. You just simply wear the tag that says Huntington Woods and they know exactly what you mean. You don't have to say anything. So, Bob, from the bottom of my heart, I'm going to get my microscope and look at that 2-point pitch and try and read through this document some other time when I have a moment. But to say that I'm proud of you folks as commissioners is beyond pale. And so thank you for allowing me to make you look good. Well, thanks. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the items of business. We need to set a public hearing date for the regular city commission meeting of May 15th, 2018 to receive public input for the 2018-19 budget. Copies of the budget are available at City Hall and the library, as well as online.
Yeah, we can put it on the website.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we set public hearing date for May 15th, 2018, to receive public comment on the 2018-2019 budget.
I'll second.
Any public comment? Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, Commissioner Jenks.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that the city send a letter to the county requesting that the smart millage be placed on the ballot at the full 1 mil level.
Second. Strongly supporting.
Any public comment? Any other comments or questions at the commission? Amy, you'll prepare that letter, does it,
I have the language from Helene.
okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will,
And the
get that.
letter also reflect that the motion carried unanimously.
I will.
All right. Item number 3. You want to take us through this one?
Yes, you recall last year was the first year that the organization, All Community Events, proposed a new 5K run. It was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. They would like to hold it again this year because it's not one of the, there's four runs that are automatically approved. They don't need to get city commission approval. But any new runs do need to come before the city commission, so this one is before you now. We didn't have any complaints from residents last year about the race. We did have an issue with not enough volunteers, but all community events assured us that this would not be an issue this year. And again, funds raised from the event will be donated to the ALS Association Michigan chapter. And they also were requesting that they reimburse us for the costs of our employees in order to oversee the race.
We have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, so move, support.
Second.
Any public comment or questions? Once, any comments or questions at the commission?
I just wanted to further support this. We lost a resident this past week to ALS, Kevin Smith, and so I think that would be a great thing to see happen in our city.
I know that, following the motion last year, we did ask for it to come back to us, based on, so we could hear the results. Now, once it's been on the books for 2 years, is this becoming automatic? Or is this,
That'd be a policy that if you're comfortable with, but I'd rather wait the second year to see how they are with the volunteers, make sure that that really is addressed before it becomes an automatic approval.
all right. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 4 is a matter of consideration of a bid award for the generator at City Hall.
Yes, you'll recall that originally what we had proposed was putting a generator at City Hall to make sure that we had an ability for communication here within our offices. We could also be able to provide support for residents if they needed shelter for some reason, either too hot or too cold if we lost power. And also that we put in a transfer switch at the recreation center if on, you know, the remote chance that City Hall is taken out in some sort of disaster, or the need is so great that we need to use the recreation center, that City Hall would not shelter residents. But when we did go out for bids, you'll see that the rec center cost for the generators switch was significantly higher than a completely installed generator at City Hall. So given the dollar amount, the $63,000, and what we're hoping is a very, 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 very remote chance that we would ever need to use the recreation center, we are suggesting that City Hall only award the bid for the generator at City Hall. If something comes up in the future, you can always go back and revisit that project, but right now it's an awful lot of money given our budget for both of those items to have the ability to be powered up in case of a power loss. So the recommendation is to award the low bid to Oak Electric for a generator at City Hall. That price is for $46,000. We do need to do some minor improvements to the basement to get it up and a little bit more habitable. You know, new treads on the stairs. The bathroom is from the 1950s and it looks like it. But those would be minor compared to the cost of the generator.
I have one question and then a comment. So the low bidder, this Clearwater, was not considered, and that was based on work product. I'm assuming what they bid was the same product, but just based on reference checks, it wasn't their quality, or there was some type of negative reference that would make us not want to use the low bidder?
We'll leave it at that. That is exactly well said.
Also,
This is a big project. This is major componentry, and unless I've got a clear view that the contractor is able to do it without any question.
I'm just gonna tell you that Oak was here last year when we had the question about making generators available, and they installed our generator as well as several other ones on our street. I had never heard of them until that time. Obviously, I have no personal stake in them, but I can tell you that their work and reliability is outstanding, and that's been true for every person in our area who has them. They're probably one of the leading entities for this in our area, and when I called him and asked him to come and speak to us, I mean, he was right here, and I thought was a
Very
worthwhile.
responsive.
But they're an outstanding company.
Yeah, to answer your question, Joe.
Yeah.
And Mr. Olsman is, yes, absolutely affirmative.
Great, thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I could continue. So the Men's Club has indicated that they were going to fund a significant portion of this project. How much, by way of dollars, did they commit to this overall project?
60,000? 60,000.
Okay, so that for sure covers the generator and installation at City Hall, with perhaps some left over for a transfer switch at the rec center. Because they're looking at a $46,550 installation here at City Hall. If they're pledging $60,000, some of those funds could be used for the transfer switch. My concern is that the weather events that we're experiencing are becoming more and more common, and that we would be very naive to think that we will not be in a power outage situation. Our power grid is the worst of all 50 states, 50 out of 50. And the weather and flood events and other things that we've experienced, I would be hesitant to want to house people here at City Hall. I think we need a generator here. We need a generator here so City Hall can operate. We need a generator here so the phone system, which is all interconnected between public safety and City Hall, can operate. Without question, I fully support moving forward with that. But I also support moving forward with a transfer switch at the rec center, because I just don't see any other viable option for a warming center or a cooling center anywhere else. And so I get the cost is high, certainly more than I would have expected at $63,000 for that transfer switch, but I just don't really see us with any other
I can tell you
option.
this, is that there was a lot. This is a shade of how many people were out there looking at this. There was a lot of activity. These contractors knew that there was going to be a lot of activity, and there was a lot of activity. I can tell you that when the commission asked me to look at the business about how many generators are available at a moment's notice, I had called a number of folks, including Caterpillar, who really is the leading company that supplies these big devices when needed for emergency power. And the fella who I talked with on the phone from Caterpillar said there are, he used the term, hundreds in the region. And he also used the term thousands regionally. So what does that mean? So it means that unless there were so the likelihood of having a generator rolled up to Recreation Center is likely in an emergency. Very likely. Why? Because there's so many of them. So unless there's such a catastrophic event, so there's a margin of error, but regionally, thousands. I asked him whether, in fact, if I have a 1600 amp switch like this is a very, very significant device. The wire is as thick as your arm. If you can somehow imagine wire as thick as your arm, that's how thick the wire is. This is a big, big piece of equipment. So the interesting piece about that is that I asked him whether in fact, if we didn't want to run the air conditioner or the, whatever. In other words, if we wanted to not run everything in the rec center, could we roll up a lesser device? A 150 kW generator instead of a 250 kW, which would run the whole building. You know, you have to do the math, and you can see that a 250 kW will run this. He said, yes, you can. It can't be the other way around. Tim and I were talking about that today. It can't be the opposite direction, that the wiring is smaller than what the, but it can be it can be the way I just said. You can put 150 kW there, run a majority of the rec center and not have the, so which would bring the device total regionally even further north. I mean, even if more of these devices out there. So I do agree with the city manager wholly that it's a lot of money to spend for something that's going to stay on the wall, probably get used once in a blue moon, and it's a commission call. But I mean, she's absolutely right. This is not chump change.
Yeah, this is a policy decision for the commission about possible needs for sheltering, so that's why we bring it to your attention.
Commissioner?
Yeah, this is a nice building. It is completely inaccessible to seniors to get down those steps for many seniors. It could create problems for other people. The rec center is on one floor. I think we do need to cover emergency situations. I agree with Joe that this switch, even though it's ridiculously expensive, that we need to add that to this resolution.
Tony, when you talk about, we'll get to the public here in just a minute, we don't have a resolution, we don't have a motion yet either, so. When you talk about the lower or smaller unit, generator unit that you could bring in to power the rec center, does that need a different transfer switch than the one we were proposed putting in? Because
No,
you're
and
not
that's,
looking to power everything?
and that's precisely my point, is that this is why we had some difficulty with the bids, because there were contractors out there who wanted to put in a lesser switch. And if you do that, then you compromise issues with the transformer, you compromise issues of usage. So I wrote specifically into the bid, no, you're going to match the size of the switch to the capabilities of the system, which means that we can go as far as doing everything, every plug, every air conditioner, every heater, everything, 100%. Which is what the switch will do. However, if we determine that the weather conditions don't warrant us to provide a lot of heating or cooling or whatever, we can have which is the big loads, you can have a lesser device, 150 kW, which would be less expensive to operate, less expensive to rent, more of them available regionally. So we ramp up, and Tim and I looked at this, we ramped up how many devices we have. You know, if you say, well, I want a 750 kW, which is, you know, you could run, you know, Cobo Hall. You know, there's 4 of them out there regionally. So if you go down to 250, there's 100 of them. If you go down to 100, there's 250 of them. There's a lot of them. So we don't run that much risk of not being able to utilize it.
Let me ask one more question. 10, 12 years ago, the rec center lost power. Maybe it was longer than that.
Well,
And
you've got good memory.
A generator was brought in, and
You've
it
got a
was
good
powering
memory.
the entire recreation center. I think Etkin was still on site, so maybe it was right after the rec center.
I think it was during an auction or something. I don't
It
know.
was, yes. So how did we hook up that generator without a transfer switch?
Very, very difficult. That's part of the issue that we have here, is that it has to be done, you know, through the cabinet downstairs. And it didn't do the whole rec center. It did a good portion of the rec center. Some of the heaters and some of the units on the rooftop were not operating. And that was 100. So you're not gonna be able to do that moving forward well. Could it be done, Mayor? It sure could be done. It's not right, and it's not the way it should be done, and I think if we're going to do this, and we determine that we need emergency generating power in an emergency, we can immediately roll one up without any fanfare and with the turn of a switch, do it. One last point. Without a transfer, we have to cut off, before we put that generator in, we had to have individuals from Edison turn off take the transformer out of so there's work that has to be done to isolate the reason the transfer switch is, you have to have that, is because you have to isolate the rest of the environment. So it takes a lot more work and effort.
Utility worker.
I think we have some public that would like to participate. I saw some hands go up.
Well, it's just a question here, if.
You could come to the microphone so
Oh,
everyone can hear you.
Who are you again?
Okay, watch out.
Introduce yourself,
Why not
Mr. Mayor.
consider, if the major consumer of power is going to be the rec center, if a problem occurs, why not put the generator there and then just have the city hall be on a separate circuit that perhaps could simplify things? A much
It
smaller
was like
switch, you don't have less power to do it.
It's about 180,000, I think, to put a generator at the rec center.
Yeah. So.
That was,
Yeah.
Oh.
The size of
yeah.
generator required.
Well, but you can't run it with the little one you're gonna put here then.
No, we would be
So why are you
renting-
gonna have a switch going down there?
We would be renting a generator.
Portable, a
A
portable
portable
generator.
generator for
The rec
that
center.
event.
Oh,
that
okay.
Power
Yep.
event.
I guess I didn't quite understand what you.
That Gillum Center really requires a lot of.
Yeah, we want to take care of that thing, boy, I tell ya.
Clerical ad 10084 LaSalle, want that? I mean, it would seem to me that another option before we rush to power everything in the city is that we might talk to some of our neighbors. We keep talking about cooperation among communities. A lot of the cities have warming facilities and cooling facilities already in place. They might, we might be able to work with some of them to come up with a solution for some of our residents. When our pool didn't work, Pleasant Ridge opened their pool. We weren't quite so nice when their pool didn't work, but they were willing to open up their pool to our residents. I would think that that's another option that the commission might consider.
Thank you. Commissioner Roselle.
Yeah, I appreciate Claire's comments. I know during the last event, though, we caught some heat from some of our residents who didn't want to go to Ferndale. We did cooperatively try to get some of our folks to go to their community center because it had shower facilities and was better equipped than we were at the time. And we caught heat for that. They didn't want to leave the community, and so I think that this is, while that still remains an option for some, this will provide something closer to home. And look, our number one job is to protect public health, safety, and welfare. And I think we need to do that. Obviously, we need to come up with another $49,000 to make the transfer switch work that wouldn't be covered by men's club funding. And so I'll leave that to our city manager and our new finance director. Your first challenge is to come up with $49,000 and try to make this work. I'm making a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we move forward and accept the bid from Oak Electric in the amount of $46,550 for a generator here at City Hall. And we accept the bid from, is it Rawhorn?
Can I interrupt you
Yeah.
while you're making a motion? Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay. And for the installation of a generator transfer switch in the amount of $63,650 at the Gillum Recreation Center.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'm open up to public participation one more time since we have a motion on the floor now. Seeing none, move back to the commission. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I just, not to keep beating on this, but I think that Commissioner Rozell is right, and, you know, I think we, in 2007, whenever that power outage was in March, was it either 16 or 17? We did get what I would regard as some perhaps unfounded criticism from some folks, but we do have the Gillum Center. It is a large facility, and in an uncomfortable situation, whether that be extreme cold or extreme heat, I think Commissioner Rozell is right. That's our first responsibility, and it's easy to tell people to pack up and go to Ferndale, and I understand the limitations of the Gillum Center, but if it's technologically feasible to do, and it's technologically feasible to do for that amount, based on what the men's club is paying, I'd say it's a reasonable investment. I support that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. He's got his first budget amendment.
Jesus Christ. I'm not
All right.
retiring.
We
that's
might
it,
say
I'm
it was
staying right here.
electrifying.
Item number 5 is a matter of consideration of the appointment of Tim Rowland as city representative to the Intergovernmental Cable Communication Authority Board and the Southeast Michigan Regional Energy Office, which both of which Tony has served as treasurer in the past, so you better watch out what you get yourself into. Commissioner.
I'd like to move that motion.
Second.
All right. Tim, are you willing to accept?
Yes, I am.
All right. Any public comment? Commission?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have 3 sets of reports and minutes. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
So move.
Second?
And any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Warrant number 336, do I have a motion to approve subject to full audit?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Jesus Christ.
City managers report.
Couple of items from the Recreation Department. We do have a summer parks maintenance position open for somebody that needs to be at least 18 years old. Applications that are available at the Recreation Center will be accepted until May 4th, until the position fills. If you've got someone at home looking for a summer job. Also, we do have the ability to purchase a season pool pass and get a free 4-visit guest pass if you purchase your season pass by May the 3rd. And the library wanted me to mention that this is the last week where they are running their Food for Fines program, where if you have overdue books, instead of paying the fine, if you bring in perishable goods, they will waive that fine. They'll be collecting that through Saturday, April 28th. And I'm not gonna say anything about Tony leaving because I don't wanna cry. But I'm really looking forward to working with Tim. I have a lot of confidence in him, and I think that's going to be a great addition to our team, and I'm really looking forward to it. Don't.
I wouldn't leave if it weren't for the fact that Tim is so brilliant in his work, product, and effort. I've never met anyone quite like this guy. He's a little frightening to me, to be honest with you, so.
Are there any questions of the city manager? Commissioners' remarks. Mayor Pro Tem,
No comments?
Commissioner Jenks.
In 2007, 29% of the roads were in poor condition. In 2016, 2017, 27% were in poor condition. I think we need to address that earlier rather than later. The second thing is that SEMCOG on May 2nd has a public-private partnership training program. There is no charge for it. I would encourage people to sign up for it. Some of the things that we may have to do as it relates to infrastructure may relate to public-private partnerships.
Thank you. Commissioner Rozell.
Two things, Mr. Mayor. First, I wanted to tell Tony, as I've told him this before, there is a difference, in my opinion, between a public employee and a public servant. And you, my friend, have been a public servant in your career at the city.
Thank you.
And earned the respect of everyone up here and everyone in this community for what you've done, and I wish you the absolute best in your retirement. I'd also like to commend our public safety department and the state police and the 13 truck drivers who saved that man's life the other night, who was attempting to commit suicide at the corner of our community by jumping off of the Coolidge Road overpass onto 696. And because of the efforts of all of those individuals, that was averted. And so our public safety department, state police, and those 13 truck drivers who pulled up and parked underneath the Coolidge Road overpass to make it impossible to jump should be commended for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
So I deviated from our adopted policy of never taking a phone out during a meeting because I was able to capture the image of you receiving the proclamation standing next to Mayor Gillum and Mayor Paul. And I took such a great picture, I wanted to post it on Facebook because I think it's a tribute to the three of you, and it was such a great image to see you in that picture. And even though we have this wall of some pictures and some pictures that are missing, I'm going to have that picture enlarged and presented to the city. So I think because for all you've done, I think you deserve a place of honor here for people to, look at. It's such a great picture, and I personally want to echo everything that's been said here. I've seen a lot of people function in different positions in different organizations, a lot of executive directors, a lot of finance directors, and I know of no one who has functioned more flawlessly and accurately. Every CPA that's ever come in here on audit and everything, they start out saying they've never seen few cities like that. So with our extremely high credit rating, which most cities would, really do anything to get, I think that your careful guidance has helped achieve that. And we're all friends here, and we all wish you the very best, and to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It truly has been an honor of mine to work with you here at City Hall for the last 22 and a half years. And then outside of the city business, all that we've done together, it's been, like I said, a great honor to call you a friend, and I appreciate everything you've done, not only for me and my family, but for all the residents of Huntington Woods. Thank you. That meeting is adjourned.
It's interesting, I told
So how would it, tries to give it to public safety so they can